Hello and welcome back to another episode of Riding Unicorns. Today we're joined by Alan Chang, founder and CEO of Fuse Energy. Alan first came on the show back in January 2023 when the business was very early in its journey, focused on building a full stack energy company. Fast forward to now, Fuse has raised lots of money, but recently a 70 million Series B and 5 billion valuation. And Alan recently posted that the next big milestone was a billion of ARR, which is a great milestone to be heading towards. So, Alan, thanks for joining us. Welcome back to the show. It's great to have you back on Riding Unicorns. I'd love to reflect a little bit on how the last 3 years have been. It's obviously been great success from the outside looking in. But from your own perspective, what has stayed the same? And what were some of the things that you've had to learn and adapt through those years?
I think one thing that's been, stayed true from the beginning is, our mission remains the same, right? To lower cost of energy, to increase, energy per capita. All this remains true. So I'd say one thing that has changed a lot is how we get there, right? So I think we probably underestimate the complexity, right, of the whole industry, right? There is a lot of moving parts. There are many, many, many things happening at the same time. It's truly a very, very complex system. And, I don't think there's a single person that knows how everything works. So basically, I think the things we need to do to achieve the goal needs to be much more than we expected. And so we didn't think we need to. One of the key problems that we face, right, every single day is basically working with the grid. Right? So the grid has huge timelines, so anywhere from 50 to 20 years of delay to connect to the grid. And it's just no way to run a business, right? It takes way too long. And actually, this problem persists not just for energy, but also any industry that consumes energy, right? So data centers or warehouses or skyscrapers and whatnot. So to truly solve this problem, you actually have to become the grid, right? And the only way you can become the grid is to buy your way in. So we're actually in the middle of buying our first grid. We're starting very small, but the idea is we work our way up into much larger grid. I think the idea is
Tell us what that means. Tell us what that means to buy a grid.
I mean, it's no different to buying any other company, right? Except you're regulated monopoly. So imagine if you're, I think the way to describe it is like you're basically buying a poorly run coffee shop, but there's a queue, maybe a 10-block queue to your coffee shop. And if you can run your coffee shop much better, much more efficient, that's how you can increase revenue of your coffee shop and make it a lot of people happier.
And last time we spoke, Alan, we talked about the benefits of being an outsider to the industry because I had a career at Revolut before starting Fuse and had a huge amount of success there. In the last few years since we spoke, you have achieved hundreds of millions of revenue. You've raised a 5 billion valuation. Like, reflecting now on those pros and cons of being an outsider, what would you say about them?
I don't think actually there's a lot of pros of being an outsider. However, if I was an insider, I would have tried to do something about it much earlier. I think obviously there are a lot of cons of being an outsider, right? It's, you have to learn something. You have to do something you've never done before. Key thing is you can assemble a very, very good team that wouldn't have otherwise existed in the industry. Because if you think about what top people care about having a lot of responsibilities. They care about making impact. They care about working with other great people, and obviously they care about the comp, which I'll say traditional energy companies don't really provide any of the above. So I'll say we're in a very unique position where Fuse can offer all four. So I think that's really our only secret weapon, right?
Yeah. It's funny. I mean, like, for years, Octopus have been kind of known, at least in the UK, as the disruptor energy brand. And I've heard they're scared of Fuse. They're worried. Like, should they be worried? Why haven't they innovated yet in the same way as you have?
Well, I'm not going to speak foul of anyone specific in the industry. Like, I think regardless of what you're building, as long as you're building, you have our respect. But one thing I would say is, like, if we thought the energy industry was in a good state, we wouldn't start Fuse in the first place. Because ultimately, I think it takes the levels to... Energy ultimately is like a super complex domain. And it depends on how much of that domain you want to engage, right? Like, for example, you can ignore a 95% domain and get by. right? And I'll argue that's actually what a lot of energy companies are doing. So if you want to get to be truly, truly great, you have to go super deep and understand all the complexity and willing to actually go super deep, right? And own the whole thing. Because otherwise I don't think it's possible to achieve the mission.
I think that's really interesting because we interview a lot of founders on here, and often they'll say things like, "Oh, if I knew how hard it was, I wouldn't have ever started." And actually, Alan, it feels like you almost like embrace that complexity we've had over 200 plus interviews, where you're like, "I wish I'd started earlier because now I've realized how hard it is." And there's something in that. Like, what is it about like incredibly hard, complex challenges that really does attract you, and what gives you that sort of belief that you're the right person to solve it? You clearly are, but what is it about that attraction towards the struggle?
Yeah, so for me, it's basically impact of the problem, right? Like obviously, I think it goes without saying that this is one of the most important problems in the world right now. I think second is like this complexity, sparks my intellectual curiosity, right? And I'd say third is like, I feel like I have this, because, one of the things that, when Charles and I discussed of starting a company, right? Like one of the things, criteria is that we agreed it was, it has to be a problem that if it weren't for us, it would be solved, right? So like, these are things we care about. And, it just so happens that energy tick all those three boxes, right? I think we're embracing complexity and, I think complexity will only go up from here. But I think what gets me very motivated is, impactful problem, but complexity of problem, but also building a great team, right? That tackles this problem. Because I think it's a bit counterintuitive, but the harder your problem, the more important the problem is. I think the better talent you can attract, right? And I'll say like, I'm pretty happy with the team, right? I go to battle with every day to, to solve this problem.
What are some of the tangible achievements that you're most proud of in the journey of Fuse so far? Like you mentioned buying your metaphorical coffee shop. I'm sure that'll be a huge achievement. But like, what are the needle moving events and milestones that you're proud of so far?
Yeah, so I think it's very hard to pinpoint exactly one thing, but I can give you some numbers, right? We have benchmarked against our cost of energy, right? Not necessarily the price we pass on to customers, but our cost of energy, right? We benchmark against the whole industry. And so far, we've lowered from beginning to end, which is today, we've lowered it about 15%. So some of that cost savings we decided to pass on to customers, but some we've decided to keep as margin. But that's like the efficiency gain we've made so far, 15%.
And where's that coming from? Is it labor? Is it grid?
It's a combination of many things, right? Ultimately, for example, it could be from automation. Something as simple as automation. Month we launch our AI customer support, so that it gets us some cost savings. But it could also be our billing engine. It could be also from our production and demand forecasting, just having a more accurate and precise forecasting compared to everyone else. It allows us to buy exactly how much we need, as opposed to overbuy, underbuy, which basically create an unintentional position where we can lose money in the market. Another example is our EPC team. So building utility scale generation, we're able to save roughly 30% in capex compared to everyone else because of better execution and just in-housing, building things in-house as opposed to outsourcing, right? So like there are many, many levers we pull to achieve that 15%. And the more we do this, we more realize actually there's so many more levers we can pull. But yeah, I'll say that's the key achievement, right? 15%.
It's amazing. James, did you want to add something to that?
Well, I did. I mean, it is amazing. And I'm a happy customer. I've been a customer since we did the podcast, basically, because I think it was still a wait list when we first did it. And I was on the wait list. And then as soon as I could, I switched to Fuse and have been very happy customer since. And I wanted to ask, what are some of the other levers that you've got planned? You recently posted, next stop 1 billion ARR, and like presumably some of these levers are part of getting you there. So what have you got coming next?
Yeah, so probably the product I'm most excited about coming this year is our micro solar battery product. So if you think about the problem of conventional solar, you need to own your own roof, and you need maybe 10 to 20 grand of your own money to install it, right? So that's not very accessible to most households. So we're building a product where it'll cost just over £1,000, and it's going to be like roughly 2.5 kilowatt system of solar and battery. And all you need to do is plug it in, right? So it's going to be like IKEA style assembly, right? So it's like the 10-minute assembly. And then you can start generating your own energy, right? We'll give you a mount. You can mount it off your balcony, or if you have a backyard. Or if you're unfortunate, you don't have neither of them, you can just get the battery too, right? And we're talking around 3-year payback, right, of the system costs. So you're getting money back in roughly 3 years. And also it's going to be a very, I'd say, well-designed product, right? So I would say traditionally energy products are not the most beautiful. Don't look great in your home. So I think this is going to complement your home decor like super well. And it's going to, integrate seamlessly into your Fuse app too.
That's super exciting. It will get me to change, I have to say. Home batteries have been on my radar for a while. But Alan, I mean, we love getting to know the people behind these companies as well. And one of the things that's talked about a lot in startup land is how the most successful founders balance these two things at once. They balance insane self-belief, but also a huge amount of self-doubt and a fear of not being enough, a fear of not achieving enough. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, of course. I think, for me, my fear of not moving fast enough probably drives me more than, say, positive reinforcement. So yeah, for sure, that does resonate.
Why the drive to move so fast? Why is that the thing that...
Because time is the most important commodity, right? If you think about it, I think the biggest enemy for us is time, right? It's actually not capital, it's time. And if we don't use that time efficiently, I think we're not going to succeed.
And are you always looking forwards, or do you ever give yourself credit for what you have achieved? Lots of founders would have achieved the revenue numbers you've achieved, the valuation you've achieved, and that would be the end for them. They'd be very proud of it. Do you look back and reflect with gratitude?
No. I mean, reality is, to be honest, I don't think what we achieve is, I'd say it's a small achievement. I wouldn't call it a small achievement. And yeah, there's so much more we can achieve. And yeah, I rarely look back.
No. And does that tell us about the mind? Does that mean, do you feel like contented and satisfied by what you are doing? Or are you kind of miserable building this thing?
I'm not satisfied, but I'm definitely not miserable. I'm having fun, having lots of fun, but not satisfied.
And Alan, obviously Revolut is a bit of a talent machine. There's been a lot of Revoluters that have gone on to launch businesses, and I think you're probably the highest profile person in terms of like where Fuse is. But there's a lot of ex-Revolut people that have raised money and building great companies. And you mentioned there that relentlessness to sort of move so quickly, and Revolut had that culture, and we're not going to get into a whole culture thing, but was that learned at Revolut? Did Nick ever stand up and say, like, this is how you should be? You should literally care more about the time than anything else? Or is it just kind of inherent in type A sort of people that really wants to push things forward? What do you think that link is?
Speak to other people. I can speak for myself. Like, what drew me to Revolut and what kept me there for a very long time is the fact that this was the environment. And to be honest, like, I think for me, I've always kind of been like that. So it was kind of the perfect environment for me. But I would say a key thing for me was the fact that this environment has succeeded gave me the confidence and reassurance that actually this is the right way to build a company. That was my key learning. Without the Revolut experience, I would probably doubt myself a lot more. Like, is this the right way to do it?
That makes sense. Can you picture yourself and Fuse in 5 to 10 years? Can you sort of picture the state of the business, the scale, the reach?
Yeah, the difference between 5 and 10 would be very big. But let's pick 10, right? So hopefully we're the largest energy company, maybe of a continent, maybe not of the world yet, but on the continent. We would have meaningfully lowered energy costs by 20-30% maybe.
For consumers, or the... Well, I was just thinking if it was the energy, the cost per unit, or whether it was for the customer.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and I think that definitely, whether you're household or business, you can definitely feel that cost saving. And I think we also can, because ultimately energy is a constraint for a lot of downstream industries, right? If you think about like AI, probably the most obvious example, like chemicals, like if you think about, artificial fertilizers, right? Like right now, everyone's talking about the price of energy going up, but also the price of fertilizers, right? The fertilizers also go through that straight, right? Is also going up. So a lot of these downstream industries that heavily depend on energy, hope at least some of that constraint is removed. And I think lowering carbon emissions comes for free if those first two things are achieved.
Do you do it? I'm obviously a consumer, but what percentage of your revenue is B2B? How many businesses do you guys service as well?
I know close to zero.
Really?
Very focused on consumers.
It's a sort of different acquisition model, I guess. You've got to reach people in a slightly different way.
We just have me focus on it, right? Like reality is that, we love to do businesses. It's just we have still a pretty small team. We try to grow that team, but yeah, I love to do it faster.
Because I mean, you're just talking about businesses there, but it's even, the local pub, they're under pressure at the moment with minimum wage going up, national insurance contribution, or, and they're all closed for their energy bills.
A steel factory, we love to lower your energy costs.
And Alan, the question I have is, you see like some disruption in energy every decade, say, and how will you guys avoid being disrupted yourselves? You can quite imagine in 5 years, you've scaled to a huge audience, enormous revenue figures, and you get stuck in a track where it becomes difficult to continue innovating because it might cannibalize your existing business model. Like, how will you stay at the frontier when it comes to nuclear alternatives, anything else that might be coming down the pipeline in 10, 20 years?
I think the only way to stay ahead is to keep pushing forward. I think startups is like a shock. You don't move forward, you die.
But it's
We
so
just
much,
have to move
it's so much an
move
expertise
forward.
game. Yeah, and
Say
it's such an expertise game. So will you have a research lab? Would you acquire companies?
We will build those research teams. So the idea is that we start simple technology. So that's why we're very focused on solar storage. And all the software we write is like, well, it's not powering, it's not, we're not taking any technical risk, right? And the idea is that we move from simple all the way to hard technologies, which, nuclear is one of. But yeah, like we will build research teams. Like we want to create an environment where the best nuclear researchers, nuclear engineers want to work, right?
Yeah, and you said earlier that the limiter isn't capital, it is often talent and speed. What are the hardest roles for you to hire for today?
It's engineering, right? The best engineers are high in demand, and I'd say like a lot of top engineers still haven't heard about us, right? Which I've.
That's why you're on here, Alan.
So I hope they'll hear about Fuse and the things we're doing, and hopefully they'll get excited about this. But yeah, I think it's really like top engineers and actually designers too, right? So for example, like the micro solar and battery products, it's gonna look beautiful in your home. So not only it has super high utility, like we believe every product needs to be. I know I mentioned this like last time, right? I believe this like principle of like, the things we build needs to be not only useful, but beautiful, right? And this, product we're building will be beautiful to look at in your home, right? It's not going to be an eyesore. You only look at it if you need it, but it's going to complement your home very, very well. And so, if we design an ugly product, even if it's super functional, I don't think people want it.
Yeah. And so hiring is the challenge. Like, how do you get around that? You've created a good set of cards for yourself in the sense that you're in a high impact space where a lot of people care about reducing cost of energy, improving renewable percentage. Like, how do you attract the best people? Is it you running the interviews yourself, like persuading people, or is there some other method that you worked out over the years?
Yeah. So right now, for every engineer or designer, I still do the final interview, and we call it final interview. Like I spent half the interview convincing them what Fuse is going to do. I don't convince them I don't convince them to join, but I explain to them this is what we're going to do. I also explain to them this is going to be like very intense. This is going to be tough. Do what you will with that information. And I'll say majority of people get very excited, and they go from, oh, this is just another job interview to, oh, actually this is super exciting, right? This could be my life's work.
And when you're telling them how tough it's going to be, what are you actually saying? Are you saying like, you're going to be here, you're going to be sleeping in the office, you're going to be working weekends, or like, are there some anecdotes that you share with them?
Well, like, I don't think sleeping in the office is strictly necessary. I'm not going to stop you from sleeping in the office if you want to, but it is not encouraged. But there is going to be a lot of work. It's because ultimately, like, to build a full stack energy company, another way of saying is like you're building 50 companies in one. But if you're building 50 companies in one and you have a team size of maybe 1.5 or 2 companies, right? Then by definition, that means there's going to be more work on a per individual basis. So, I mean, I think it's that, right? It's for the individual. I think this is an environment for the individual that has high agency, wants impact, wants ownership, and wants to make a difference.
Yeah. And like, what are the signals in interviews that signal to you that an employee is going to be an amazing employee? Or can you only find that out later?
Yeah, so I think obviously like the first thing to do is like whether they have the skills, right, to do the job. If you're a designer, you have design skills, like visual skills, as well as like UX skills. For engineer, you have programming, problem solving, etc. But if you think about like, in terms of, I'll say like what, traditionally called soft skills, right? Or the attitude we have. It's actually quite simple, right? When you explain to them, just like I did, like this is all the things we're going to do. These are all the markets we're going to go. These are products we'll build. And do they get excited? Like, do they lean in, right? Or do they lean out? And you can tell them body language. If they say things like, oh, it depends on compensation. Oh, it depends on blah, depends on, probably not the right fit.
And has that been a reliable signal for you?
Yeah. Like, it's actually simple enough. They just self-select out, which I, totally respect that, right? I don't think Fuse is for everyone. And if you don't join, you can still be like, a very talented engineer or a talented designer, and it's not right for you. And that's totally okay. But yeah, I think it's more about, we are very transparently, explaining, this is what it's going to be. There are no surprises, right? If you like this, if this is your thing, please join.
Love that.
Yeah, I just want the final question, and on a really sort of positive angle. So I just wanted to ask about, what are you obviously had a vision, belief, etc. But just final, what do you feel more strongly now than you did when you last came on the show? Or what do you feel even more emboldened by and like working towards?
I think my conviction that this problem could be solved is higher than before. Although the complexity, my estimation complexities went up, but what I know about the problem also went up. And I'm more and more convinced this can be solved.
So is this the next $100 billion company, Alan? Is this the next $1 trillion company?
I think if we're successful, I think Fuse could be a lot more than that.
Awesome to get in now.
It was probably time to get in when we first.
Yeah. Let me tag you. We've got amazing candidates listening, so they should all.
Yeah. That's great. Well, look, Alan, thank you for sharing all of that. We've still got our final 2 questions, but just sort of reflecting on the conversation, what you guys did at Revolut is obviously exceptional. To go again in a completely new market and do what you've done so far, it might only seem like a small achievement because you've still got such a mission to deliver on. I think what you're doing is great, and a very happy customer. And obviously, if you achieve what you think you will, then it will be a huge success for yourself and for Europe and for everyone involved, and it will be their life's work. So it's great to hear. We're just going to move on to our final 2 questions. So the first is a future unicorn prediction. I don't think we did this when you first came on, but often people who come on are either angel investing or they've got other friends who are founders. And it's a cheap way of Hector and I learning about cool companies. So if there was another company that you'd seen that was early stage that you thought had, potential to be a unicorn, who would they be?
Honestly, I have no idea. It seems like unicorns are everywhere nowadays.
They're just coming.
Have you done any angel investments, or do you think they're all going to zero?
First, I don't really do angel investments. Like, why would I sell? I only do it if, someone I've known for a very long time or worked with a very long time, just to show support, even though the amount is not very large. But in general, I don't really do it. Like, why would I sell, shares which I have high conviction in, right? To something that from maybe a 15-minute or 20-minute conversation.
Alan, you don't have to answer this question, but have you sold any secondary Fuse on the way so far?
I'll say, yeah, small amounts.
Cool. And then our final question is our dinner party guest game. You hinted earlier that you'd remembered the 3 that you came up with last time. I've got them here in front of me, but you probably remember them. But if you were to have dinner with any 3 people now, who would they be?
Well, I'll probably still pick those 3, to be honest.
So we love Musk, Jobs, and Enzo Ferrari. Still going strong with them. Fair enough.
Alan, do you love Ferrari? I mean, I'm a huge car nut and would love a Ferrari. Will you eventually get a Ferrari, do you think?
I bought one before.
You have?
Yeah, I bought one before, yeah. The problem is they're not very reliable.
Which one did you have?
I had several.
Oh,
The last one I had was the 4A,
yeah, super nice.
but it died all the time.
Oh, really? That's annoying.
So I think it's, I don't think Enzo will be happy.
More more functional and reliable product.
Yeah, if battery dies in a week, you don't drive it, which is not good. Like most cars, they die 2 months. They die in a week. So it's not very practical.
All right. Well, look, thank you so much for coming on Riding Unicorns again. Obviously, it's been great to have you back, and we love seeing the people that come on the show just go from strength to strength. We can take absolutely zero credit for what you've achieved, obviously, but it's great that you have achieved so much in this time, and we just wish you continued success as you take on very important problem for consumers, businesses, and the world, really. Mankind, exactly. So thanks again for coming on and sharing more about how it's all gone.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Alan.